he had seen the Liberty Caucus really not getting much traction. It was kind of an informal gathering, a meeting of the same few minds, good minds, but small numbers. And he got in. He kind of took over with a little bit of force to make sure that this could be something viable, so that he could put his time and even some of his own money into expanding the reach of the Liberty Caucus, giving it a position on the State Central Republican Committee, and potentially, from what we've talked about, is developing a political action committee out of that group to raise money for supporting developing, right? Because that's the key. We don't develop. We just go, hey, are you Republican? Yes. Do you want to run? Because it's June and we're running out of time.
Right.
In a lot of races. We didn't do that this year. That's something I'm very much against, and I'm really glad that we didn't have the same failures we did. But he can develop candidates that are liberty-minded, that get people like you excited about the Republican Party, even if just a little bit, to say, well, you know what? They understand that the voices are going to come from a lot of different corners, and if we can be loudest together in the middle with those voices, we can take on the Democratic machine. And if I can't accomplish those types of things, maybe it is time to burn it all to the ground. But I really do think, before we go to that nuclear option, groups like the RLC, the progress we've had this year, there's some potential for the RIGOP to have a resurgence. And if we can't do that, then maybe all is lost.
Well, now, okay, so this organization is separately chartered?
Separately chartered, yep.
Separately chartered, yet at the same time they have a seat on the board?
Well, we're looking to get that.
Okay.
I hope that my position, I'm actually the treasurer of the RLC, hopefully being an executive member of that, I can have the clout to get us a position on State Central. But
well, let's go over, there are some litmus test issues, because libertarians, the movement is still small enough that most of us are true believers.
Sure.
As any organization grows, unless you're politically naive, you understand that, eventually as you grow, accommodations are made and the tent becomes bigger, or you stand in the wilderness.
Right.
But, the big L questions, if you will, of course, are, pot reform.
So are we prefacing that these are my points of view or the party's points of view?
Let's talk about the Liberty Caucus, and maybe it's unfair not to have him here.
Sure.
But from your perspective as treasurer of the Liberty Caucus, and a very public advocate, by the way, and I think you give good, you promote well.
I appreciate that. People need to talk about these things.
Well, it's your willingness to do battle. Not to dismiss people as either trolls or insurgents or whatever. And I am a troll's troll. I think the trait we found we share this week, as we've spoken more frequently, is that we just like to irritate people sometimes just for the sheer spectacle of it.
When you're involved in politics, whether it be through the media and advocacy or myself, through a position with the party, you have to find a way to make yourself laugh. Otherwise, it's just terribly depressing.
Right. And I think we both agree that some of the best humor is self-deprecating.
Absolutely. I'm the first to make fun of myself. Never want to be second to the punch on that one.
So how does the Liberty Caucus feel about regulation and legalization of marijuana?
Executive committee-wise, I think pretty much everybody's in favor of legalization and regulation. Myself, personally, I can tell you that I think it's very important that we separate what we do for medical patients and those that have finally been able to become part of the program now, to continue to offer some type of tax break or assistance to those nonprofits that are helping the sick. But as we've seen in Seattle and Denver, there's a lot of tax revenue to be made, and without as much consequence as a lot of people would like you to believe with full legalization. It means more money for people in Rhode Island. Let them pay the taxes. Let's keep the medical folks, somebody who's old and sick with cancer who needs it to get by, let's make sure we subsidize their cannabis. But there's no. It's safer than alcohol. It's safer than tobacco. It's safer than half of the stuff that your doctor that you pay a ridiculous copay to every time you go see him will prescribe you. So it's time to be real about it. Now, whether the entire party will embrace that or not, I don't know. I think the answer is yes, but it won't be tomorrow. It might be in 5 years. But we've got to head down that path. It's hypocritical. We're looking at policy and fear-based thoughts that were developed in the 1920s. Why are we doing that?
Well, and true, we're starting to see some real ramifications internationally as a result of our drug policy. The failed war on drugs is perceived by many in the quote-unquote big L libertarian movement as having helped incite the last wave of immigration as people, tried to escape the thrall.
Cartel violence in Mexico is out of control.
Right, and a lot of that goes away fairly quickly in an open market for drugs.
Sure thing.
Marijuana, particularly.
Sure thing.
And the public health consequences of that, the fiscal consequences of that, have been staggering. And of that, it's one simple thing.
Right.
The trouble is, for many of us, we see the failed war on drugs as a multi-billion-dollar industry that's embraced by both big political parties because of, quite frankly, there's a lot of money to be made in government. One of the scariest parts of the new reality of politics is that a lot of progressives and a lot of conservatives embrace big government because of the profit potential made by an overreaching, overly large federal government. Marriage equality. Now, there seems to be still a lot of residual bitterness from members of the, and one of my political heroes in the state, by the way, and I do have Republican political heroes, is Dawson Hudson.
Great guy.
If there is a poster child for everything good about Rhode Island Republican libertarians, it would be Dawson Hudson. To me, a litmus test in this election is if this state actually reelects Kilmartin.
Have you lost all hope and faith in voters at that point?
Pretty close. I don't know if I've seen in my lifetime here in Rhode Island, the 25 or 30 years I've been here, a clearer choice.
Yeah, to me, it's no question. I mean, Kilmartin, maybe town council in Sarasota, Florida, could be in his future, but he's absent. He's not a watchdog. He's been part of the machine. I understand Dawson has now had a 2-year stint of senator under his belt, and that's or 4, whatever it was,
right.
Is great. But he's really not an insider. He never has been. He's never felt that way. I think I can say that without sounding too.
Well, he was out front on He was out front early on 38 Studios.
Yes.
Really, one of the only. He was really, to me, the prominent member of the Senate and General Assembly that didn't play the "they lied to me" defense, and instead vigorously attacked the issue. He was also fundamentally key in getting marriage equality passed through the Senate.
Absolutely.
So is the hesitation for people like me to become involved in the Republican Party at all, not just Rhode Island, is this obsession with social issues?
Well, I'm afraid to answer for the National Party on anything.
Right.
I never know where they'll go, and that's because they've got their own team to figure that out. But I know we're coming up towards the end of the show, and I really want to make a point, and I'm going to speak personally. The ship has sailed for anybody who's against marriage equality. Mm-hmm. The time for prejudice and judgment is gone. We saw that with our Senate Republicans standing strong on marriage equality. The government probably shouldn't be in the marriage business, but as long as they are, we need to support those that want to get married. I'm sick and tired of seeing people use their faith. I'm a Christian. I grew up Catholic. That has nothing to do with how we legislate. If you think somebody's going to rot in hell for all eternity because of a book that you read on Sundays, that's great. I support your right to believe that. But don't talk to me about that in the State House. Okay? It really drives me crazy. We have donors to the GOP that some are openly gay, some are in the closet, and they're part of what we do. So I would say to anybody who's still in the GOP, who's has some kind of warped sense of how we treat our fellow man or woman, regardless of who they love, to put up or shut up. And if they can match the donation and the commitment and the support we've had from a lot of openly gay Republicans, then fine. I'll listen to the old bigoted style sense of thinking. But this ship has sailed, and I'm very passionate about it. Our brothers and sisters here in Rhode Island, gay, straight, transgendered, or otherwise, need to come together, and the Republican Party needs to welcome them. So if you're listening and you find yourself to be a man who loves another man, a woman who loves another woman, or what have you, I want you to know that I don't care. I want you to know that Mark Smiley doesn't care what you do in your bedroom, because it shouldn't be the government's business. And there's a party, at least party leadership for sure, that are willing to have conversations. If you're a fiscal conservative and you find yourself saying, well, if I can't get, the Republicans can't get out of their way on gay marriage, then how can I be a part of them? You should know that there's advocates for your rights within the GOP, and we hope that there's a way to get you to come on board with us.
In the closing minute, excellent show. This is why we need another hour. In the closing minute, Alan Fung win?
Yeah, squeaker, but yes, 5 points or less.
Dawson?
Very close. The incumbency helps Kilmartin, but I gotta pray to that same God. Yes, Kilmartin goes out and Dawson gets in.
How can folks get a hold of you?
At Robert Paquin, Paquin on Twitter. I love to interact, fight, argue, discuss, and rigop.org.
Great. You've been listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio. Again, coalitionradio.us. We will be hosting this podcast within a day or so. Next week, Margot Morisseau in studio. Rhode Island Senate race. You going to get Nick Kettle in here?
I'm going to try.
God bless you, lad. You've been listening to The Coalition. Have a great week. Stay political. Stay pissed off. All right? But keep it issues driven. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.